Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday, everyone. Let's chat on the community management topic, but currently I would like to share with you my discovery with Claude on this matter, and next we'll chat with you, invite new people, maybe create some community, focusing on something, on learning, on growth, and so on and so far. So welcome, please drop your comments. Yeah, today I'm gonna share with you my discovery on a few pages regarding community manager. And I'll read as I can, I'll do my best. And let's see how it's going. So community manager, this is not especially a new role from my understanding, but let's call it the brand new role for 2026. Yeah. Why this role exists? The community manager role emerged from a fundamental shift on how value is created between organizations and people. In the pre-digital era, organizations broadcast. They spoke, an audience listened. The internet broke that asymmetry. Suddenly, people could talk back, talk to each other, and organize around shared interests without the organization's permission. This creates both a threat and an opportunity. The threat: unmanaged communities can shape narratives, spread misinformation or fragment. The opportunity: a well-cultivated community becomes a self-reinforcing asset, generating content, providing support, driving retention, and accelerating innovation faster than any internal team could alone. The community manager is the human infrastructure that converts this raw social energy into something structured and purposeful. The core value proposition. Think of it across three dimensions. For the organization, a community is compounding assets. Every member who joins contributes, and stays makes the community more valuable for the next member. The community manager is the steward of this compounding loop. For members, belonging, identity, access, and peer learning. People join communities to become something, not just to get something. And for the product or mission, communities generate unfiltered signal. What users actually need, where friction lives, which features matter. The community manager is the translation layer between that raw signal and internal teams. Role responsibilities, the structural review. 1, 2, 3. All right. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday. Today I'm gonna share with you my maybe new role, investigation and chatting on this matter. Please feel free, drop the comment, and further I'll chat with you if we'll collect any related points to discuss. So yeah, role responsibilities, structure view. Let me check. All right, yep. Rather than a flat list, this cluster into 3 operating layers. The first one, infrastructure layer, building the conditions for community to exist. Platform selection and architecture. Onboarding design, how new members find their footing. Rules, norms, and moderation frameworks. And tooling, forums, Discord, Slack. I guess everyone know a lot of open platforms to chatting about everything. The second one, cultivation layer, keeping the ecosystem alive and growing. This is a point about content programming, sparkling conversation, not just moderating them, recognizing and elevating power users and contributors, conflict resolution and trust maintenance. This is my loved one point. And event facilitation. Virtual meetups, challenges, rituals, and something MAAS. Not sure about this acronym. All right, and the third one, intelligence layout. Converting community activity into organizational insight. Sentiment and trend analysis. Feedback synthesis and routing to product and leadership. Here's the metrics: engagement rate, churn signals, net promoter dynamics, contributor funnels, and reporting community health upward. Here's the global perspective frameworks. Several lenses from organizational theory and social science apply cleanly here. Number 1, community of practice. Wenger, 1998. Wenger's framework distinguished 3 elements: domain, shared interest, community, relationship, and practice, shared activity. This community manager's job through these leans is to strengthen all 3 simultaneously, not just drive engagements metrics. Number 2, the 1990 rule. In any online community, roughly 1% create, 9% contribute occasionally, and 9% contribute occasionally, and 90% large. The community manager's strategic challenge is: how do you move people up the participation ladder without burning out this available 1%? This shapes everything from recognition system to content strategy. Social capital theory. Communities generate 2 types of capital: bonding, tight ties within the group, and bridging, loose ties connecting the group to outside. A healthy community needs both. Overbonded community become echo chambers. Underbonded ones fragment. The community manager manages this balance. 4, platform ecosystem thinking. In horizon of fourth industrial revolution. In the fourth industrial revolution frame, communities aren't just social groups. They are platform layers. A developer community around an API, for example, creates network effects that function like a business mod. The community manager in this context is a platform strategist, not just a social moderator. Number 5, the Orbit model. More recent practitioner developed layer, the Orbit model. Developed as an alternative to traditional sales funnels for communities, it maps members by gravity, how central they are to the community, rather than by purchase intent. The community manager's job is to increase the gravity of high potential members through progressively deeper engagement opportunities. I believe this exact solution for TikTok as well. From my perspective and observation, it's fit to the exact Orbit model. Yeah, maybe combine a few ones. And yeah, a few interesting tension points to explore further. Of course, I would like to share with you further today. Authenticity versus strategy. Communities feel authentic only when they are not visibly managed. Yet, they require active management to survive. The community manager operates in this paradox constantly. Community versus audience. Many organizations confuse having followers with having a community. An audience consumes, a community co-creates. The community manager role only makes sense when the goal is the latter. Internal positioning problem. Community managers often sit awkwardly between marketing, product, and support. This structural ambiguity is one reason the role is frequently undervalued. It's hard to attribute its ROI to a single P&L line. Yeah, this is something in the shadow mode what's operate to create value. This is a slightly hidden layer to which almost contribute to ROI and P&L data as well. Yeah, scale versus intimacy trade-off. The qualities that makes small communities powerful, like personal relationship, trust, belonging, tend to erode as a community scales. The community manager must architect systems that preserve intimacy at scale, one of the hardest problems in the field. Yeah, right. Happy Monday, everyone. Just for a recap, today I'm gonna share with you my discovery on the community management and community manager role, which I try to discover from my perspective, combined with my experience, and provide some outcomes and share with you guys to make it real. Maybe next time create some brand new role and land into whatever countries you know you're comfortable with. If you need to read this separately, please reach out to me in direct messages and I kindly share with you my preparation copy. So feel free. All right. What about community versus audience? A bit definition, history, and distinction. Again, I'd like to share with you my drafts, how I discover the new topics. Feel free to drop the comment in the chat, ask something, and further I'll back to the chat and interact with you. and happy Monday. So, core definitions. Audience is a relationship defined by directionality. One source, many receivers. The audience's role is to receive, react, and at best amplify. The connection runs vertically, from creator or brand downward to individual. Members of an audience are not connected to each other in any meaningful way. They share the receiver position, not a relational bond. Community. Community is a relationship defined by reciprocity. Many nodes, many connections, members speak to each other, not just to center. Identity and belonging emerge from peer relationships, not from proximity to a brand. The connection runs laterally. Critically, the community can survive without the original creator. An audience cannot. One sharp diagnostic questions. If the brand disappeared tomorrow, would the people still have a reason to gather? If yes, community. If no, audience. Historical transition. The distinction wasn't always consequential. For most of the 20th century, the broadcast model was structurally dominant. Television, radio, print, whatever. Organizations had no mechanism to facilitate peer-to-peer interaction at scale, even if they wanted to. Audiences were the only available format. Phase 1. Early Internet. 1990s. Forums, mailing lists, Usenet groups, the first GNU peer-to-peer communities emerged outside organizational control. These were interest-driven, self-organized, and deeply tribal. Organizations largely didn't understand them and didn't participate. Phase 2. Social media emergence. 2004 till 2012. Facebook pages, Twitter followings, YouTube subscribers. Organizations rushed to build communities on these platforms, but what they actually built were managed audiences. The platform architecture itself was broadcast-oriented. A brand's Facebook page was still fundamentally on one-to-many channel dressed in social clothing. The language of community was adopted, the structure wasn't. Phase 3. The confusion peak. 2012 till 2018. Follower count becomes the dominant metric. Community building became a marketing euphemism for audience growth. The conflation was near total in corporate vocabulary. A company with 500,000 Instagram followers called itself community lead. The word lost precision. Phase 4. The correction. 2018 till present. Several forces triggered a reassessment. Algorithmic reach collapsed in social platforms. Brands discovered their communities would see only 2 till 5% of their content organically. Owned platforms, Discord, Circle, Slack, Substack, rose as alternatives. The creator economy forced a reckoning. Creators with 50,000 deeply engaged subscribers often outperformed brands with millions of passive followers. The distinction between audience and community become economically legible, not just philosophically interesting. The 2020s till 2021 pandemic period accelerated this further. Digital gathering became the only gathering. Communities with genuine peer infrastructure survived and deepened. Audiences with no lateral connection had nothing to hold them together when passive content consumption solved. So this is a structural differences, comparative map with audience and community. So connection direction in audience vertical, community uses peer-to-peer. Member relationship, parallel, not interconnected, but in community interdependent. Identity source for audience, I follow X, but community use I belong to X. Value mechanism for audience consumption, for community co-creation and exchange. Okay, we know that dissolves audience without center, but community can still persist. Primary currency for audience attention and trust for community. Growth dynamic linear in audience and compounding network effects with community. For sure, yeah. Failure mode, algorithmic reach collapse for audience and community fragmentation, or echo chamber, yeah, like a ghosting and other matters. Again, community manager's role, content scheduler, reach optimizer. Yeah, it looks like a content manager as well for audience. But community manager for real community should work with as culture architect, relationship steward. The psychological layer for community. This is where it gets non-obvious. Audiences satisfy a passive identity need. Association without commitment. I watch this person. Costs nothing and signals something. Communities satisfy an active identity need. Belonging requires participation, and participation shapes who you are. Wenger called this identity through practice. You become a photographer by doing photography with other photographers, not by following a photography brand. This distinction maps onto Maslow's hierarchy in an interesting way. Audiences operate at the esteem layer. You follow that makes you look or feel a certain way. Communities operate at the belonging layer, a more fundamental need, and therefore more sticky, more resilient, and harder to replicate. From an attachment theory lens, audience relationships are avoided by structure, low commitment, easy exit, no reciprocal obligation. Community relationships develop secure or even anxious attachment patterns. Members develop genuine concern for each other, feel loss when someone leaves, and feel threatened by community conflict. This is simultaneously what makes communities powerful and what makes them hard to manage. Authenticity versus strategy. The paradox at the center. The core tension: communities feel real only when they don't feel managed. The moment members perceive that their interactions are being engineered, that the conversation prompts are calculated, that the recognition is formulaic, that the moderator is existing as a existing playbook, trust erodes. Authenticity is the oxygen of community health, and yet unmanaged communities drift, fragment, get captured by extremists, or simply go silent. The research on self-organization, the research of self-organized online community is unambiguous. Without deliberate design and activate facilitation, most communities die within 18 months or radicalize toward their most vocal minority. The community manager therefore operates inside a structural paradox. The more skillfully they manage, the less their management should be visible. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. And yeah, today I'm going to share with you my, let's call it the homework. I'm Victor, business analyst, product and project manager, which discover a brand new role like a community manager from my perspective. For these 15 years, I've collected some management skills and observation, and today I'm going to share with you something new for maybe everyone in Ukraine, not only Ukraine, globally. This is, on one hand, not really new one role, but in fact, which is currently in the shift to this destination, to this community, which will be managed by the community manager. And if you have any opportunities to share your thoughts on this matter, your experience, if you combine something, observe or chatting, whatever, please feel free, drop the comment. I'll back to you further after my reading. This is my draft or of my weekly investigation on this matter. And yeah, let's chat for any related points to community management. All right. Let's check the comments if we have. Hi, Anne. Hi, everyone. Yeah. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Nothing special, just evening reading with my discovery. Okay. Here's the 3 manifestations of this tension. First, programmed spontaneity. The content, is because content manager, this is a real community manager role for the audience. And today we're we're going to share the shift from the content management style and design to the community. So nevertheless, the community manager designs conversation prompts, sees discussions, times posts for maximum engagement, all to create the appearance for organic conversation. Members experience it as natural. If they ever discover the scaffolding, the spell would break. This is not deception in a malicious sense. It's closer to stage design. But it requires the community manager to hold on dual consciousness, strategic intent masked by genuine warmth. Second, manufactured ritual. Community are held together by shared rituals. Weekly threads, recognition moments, insight, references, recurring events. These feel organic to members but are almost always deliberately initiated by community manager or founder. The paradox: once a ritual takes root and members feel ownership of it, it becomes authentic. The origin doesn't matter, the lived experience does. The community manager must be willing to disappear from the ritual's story. This is a good one point. Hard to understand, hard to execute, hard to adopt, and so on and so far. Let's see the next one, authentic performance. The community managers themselves must be genuinely present, curious, warm, real, while simultaneously executing a strategic role. This is psychologically demanding in a way that they rarely acknowledged. They are not performing authenticity. They must actually be authentic while also being strategic. The two are not opposites, but holding both simultaneously is a skill most people underestimate. This point also a good one. The political consultant parallel. Of course, let's only touch this point. This maps almost exactly onto political communication strategy. A skilled consultant designs messages, frames narratives, and engineers emotional responses, but the candidate must deliver them as if they're speaking from the heart or in real time. The strategy must become invisible for the communication to land. The consultant who lets the scaffolding show has failed. The community manager is, in this sense, the political consultant of the community, working backstage so the front stage feels alive. The psychological risk. Sustained authenticity as performance creates a specific kind of professional burnout. One that's different from ordinary overwork. It's identity diffusion. The community manager begins to lose track of where their genuine self ends and their professional persona begins. This is especially acute in small, tight communities where the community manager is also a member, not just a facilitator. The healthiest community managers develop what might be called role clarity with genuine investment. They know they're playing a role, they play it with full commitment, and they maintain as a private self that is separate from the community persona. This is the same psychological skill required of therapists, actors, and again, political consultants. The community versus closing observation about community versus audience distinction, and the authenticity versus strategy paradox. They are actually the same tension expressed at different levels. At the macro level, is this a real gathering of people or a managed audience? At the micro level, is this person genuinely present or performing presence? In both cases, the answer worth aspiring to is both simultaneously with enough skill that the question never needs to be asked. Okay, let's moving further. This is an evening reading regarding my weekly homework with community management, ground analysis, and discovering a new role named community manager. And here, this stream, I would like kindly share with you my drafts on this matter. If you have any community management experience, please reach out, drop the comment, share your experience, and let's engage. So, yep, the internal positioning problem. Problem with scale versus intimacy of community. Why it exists? The community manager role was never designed from the inside out. It emerged in response to an external reality. Communities forming around products, missions, and ideas. And organizations bolted the role onto existing structured retroactivity. This is the original scene of community manager positioning. The role was created to manage something that organizational charts had no category for. The result is a structural orphan. Community sits at the intersection of marketing, like brand, growth, content, product, feedback loop, feature validation, support, member issues, conflict resolution, and sometimes HR, internal communities, culture programs. It belongs fully to none of them. And in most organizations, what belongs to no one gets resourced like it belongs to no one. The three typical homes and their problems. Housed under marketing, the most common placement. The logic: community is an audience building function. Therefore, it belongs with demand generation and brand. The problem: marketing optimizes for reach and conversion. Its metric are impressions, leads, MQLs. Community health doesn't map onto this cleanly. The community manager finds themselves pressured to treat the community as a distribution channel, pushing production announcement, running campaigns, which degrades the very thread that makes the community valuable. Members feel the shift. Engagement drops, The community manager is blamed for poor performance on metrics the role was never designed to optimize. So housed under products. Less common, more intellectually coherent. Community as a feedback infrastructure. A living research panel. The problem here is different. Product teams move fast and need specific, actionable input. Community generate rich but diffuse signal. The community management gets pulled into researcher role without research training or tools, and the community's social needs get subordinated to product roadmap cycles. Members sense they're being mined, not cultivated. Housed under customer success or support. Happens frequently in SaaS. The logic: community reduce support ticket volume through peer-to-peer problem solving. True, but it frames the community purely as a cost reduction mechanism. The community manager becomes a glorified moderator. Strategic initiatives, cultural building, contributor recognition, thought leadership programming never get prioritized because they don't reduce tickets. The ROI attribution problem. This is the deeper issue beneath the structural one. In most organizations, budgets follow measurable ROI. Community ROI is real, but distributed and lagging. It shows up in retention rates, in NPS scores, in product adoption, in talent acquisition, in reduced CAC, through word of mouth. None of these are directly attributable to a single community initiative. The community manager cannot point to a campaign and say that conversation thread generated X in pipeline. Compare this to a paid media manager who can show direct attribution within a dashboard, or a sales rep whose quota is their number. The community manager's value is diffuse, multi-quarter, and partially invisible, which makes them perennially vulnerable in budget cycles. The political parallel is direct. This is a problem of the advisor versus the candidate. The advisor's contribution to a victory is real, often decisive, but the scoreboards show the candidate's name, not the advisor's. The community manager builds conditions for the organizational wins that gets attributed elsewhere. What the positioning problem produce psychologically? For the community manager, chronic structural ambiguity has a specific psychological profile. It generates constant justification fatigue, perpetually proving the role's value to skeptical stakeholders, metric anxiety, the pressure to make community legible in languages, spreadsheets, dashboards that don't naturally feed what community produce. Identity instability. When your role has no clear home, your professional identity lacks an anchor. Community managers report higher rates of imposter syndrome than most adjacent roles. Boundary erosion. Community doesn't have office hours. Members manage at all time. Without structural support, community manager have no organizational permission to set limits. This is worth naming because it's not a personal failure of individual community managers. It's a predictable output of structural misplacement. The role attracts empathetic, relationally skilled people and then puts them in an organizational context that systematically undervalues and overextended them. The fix, structural and symbolic. The organization that gets this right to do two things differently. First, they position community as a standalone function with a direct line to leadership, not a sub-team within marketing or product. This signals that community is a strategic asset, not a support service. GitLab, Notion, and Figma are instructive cases. Their community functions have had executive sponsorship and cross-functional authority. Second, they invest in community-native metrics, contributor growth rate, member-to-member interaction ratio, community-attributed retention cohorts, time to first contribution for new members. These don't map onto standard dashboard, but they make the community managers work legible in its own terms rather than borrowed terms. Scale versus intimacy trade-off. The fundamental dynamic. Small communities are powerful for one reason. People know each other or feel like they could. That proximity, real or perceived, produced trust, candor, genuine peer learning, and the willingness to be vulnerable. These are the conditions that make community irreplaceable. No amount of content or product feature replicates them. Scale destroys proximity. As membership grows, the ratio of strangers to know faces increases. Conversations that once felt like a dinner table begin to feel like a conference hall. Members who once felt central begin to feel like observers. The intimacy that made the community worth joining quietly disappears, often before anyone has named what's being lost. This is not a failure of execution. This is a structural inevitability unless actively designed against. The historical archetype. A few more words. Robin Dunbar research on cognitive limits of social group size. It is a fundamental reference here. Dunbar's number, approximately 150, represents the upper limit of stable social relationship the human brain can maintain with genuine relational texture. Beyond that, social cohesion requires institutional structures, rules, hierarchies, rituals, symbols. This maps directly onto community management. A community of 50 can run on personal relationships alone. A community of 500 needs light structure. A community of 5,000 needs deliberate sub-architecture. A community of 50,000 need something closer to a governance model. Most community builders fail because they apply the management approach of stage 1 to the structural reality of stage 3. How intimacy actually erodes the mechanics. Signal to noise collapse. All right, thanks. Okay, a few more words. Signal to noise collapse. In a small community, every post is relevant to most members. As membership scales, most volume increases, but relevance per member decreases. Members begin skipping, then lurking, then disengaging. The feed that once felt curated now feels like noise. The original member problem. Early members build their identity partly around being early, being known, being valued, having shaped the norms. Scale dilutes this. New members don't know the founding stories, don't honor the unwritten rules, and don't recognize the established contributors. Original members experience this as cultural erosion. Many leave. The community loses its most invested nodes precisely at the moment it appears to be succeeding by gross metrics. Let's recap in a few words what I'm actually discovering here. And if you have any experience on the community management or just classic traditional management role, but focusing on the community growth, developing from scratch, and whatever reason, please drop a comment, share your experience, and maybe next time we'll chat with you by voice on this matter and discover something new. Yeah, let's see. Thank you, Alex, for the gift. Appreciate it. Thanks, and to support. It's also so much appreciated. Yuri, welcome. Happy Monday to you, especially. And yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, you're welcome too. So yeah, let's stay tuned. And see you next time.